As an actress, I discovered that my dream role right now is to portray an ice skater, because I would absolutely love to go through the process and the practice that is required in order for me to accurately like put on the performance of an ice skater. Oh my goodness, I would love losing myself on the rink, losing myself in that character. I feel like ice skaters are classical entities. They have a certain like poise and elegance for me, and I just love the personality that comes with having an interest in ice skating. And I would totally love to be in an ice rink. I think that would be so cool. Although I would prefer for any characters that I do to like only be fictional, like totally born out of someone's imagination and not based on any person living or in death. Because I just feel like it keeps a certain kind of innocence and purity to the art form when things are purely inspired, originally inspired. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with like biopics and purely non-fictional characters, because genuinely I feel like more than half of the films that are in like life that have been made throughout time have been biopics or based on some kind of true story. And I just think for me, I would rather live in a completely fictional world if I'm gonna pretend to live in a world. I would rather it be totally made up, because I feel like that takes off any boundaries, any limitations that could possibly exist when you're still within I feel like the confinement of real life. When you're trying to mimic real life, it makes it much harder, I feel like, to be authentic. For me, I personally am turned off a little bit by stories that are based on true events or like biopics. I just wouldn't do that. I'm not really okay. Well, except for this one thing, like Marvel. If y'all ever trying to do something with Mary Jane that is her own kind of storyline, and y'all trying to give her own kind of duality, the way that you did with Spidey and Venom, and you genuinely give Mary Jane a chance to shine, I'm your girl, for sure. I would totally. Mary Jane is the only character in the entire multiverse that I would ever take on, who is actually already existing, a pre-existing character. Mary Jane is the only one, simply because I love Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is my soulmate, and I feel like he would be my favorite superhero in every life. So that's just how I feel, Now, other than Mary Jane, just acting in general, just as a practice, as an art form, I totally want to live in a made-up world, in a fantasy world, and collaborate with writers and filmmakers and people who are creative, who also want to just live in this totally fictional, imaginary world with me, and kind of romanticize our own delusions just for the time of just for the time span of making this art, making this film, and then we can all come back to reality. I feel like that is a privilege that acting grants, that I feel like sometimes is taken for granted, the ability to completely abandon all reality and any responsibility for having a connection to it. Genuinely, and I feel like if I really am going to pursue acting and become an actress, I want to take full advantage of the fact that I have an opportunity to just disassociate and it be okay, because it's really not that okay to dissociate in reality. Really, like, things can happen if I try to live in my own made up life in reality. So I think that that's the beauty of the art form. It has a natural duality, and it offers you just this freedom to lose yourself while still having access to human emotions. Having access to human emotions and human experiences, and being able to completely, like, lose your mind while still being able to explore a psyche, a psyche that isn't your own, and the way that reality, or the imitation of reality, the way that reality would move, the way that life would change if you were this person, who's completely and totally made up. And I just don't really believe in duplicating souls. And I think that sometimes when you are portraying a character that isn't totally, like, that isn't totally, like, made up, I feel like you can end up giving a performance that just feels like a mockery. And I think that sometimes that's how the film industry loses its reliability and its virtue and its spirit, like all that makes the art of filmmaking necessary, things that give filmmaking purpose, in a world where there's infinite reasons for it not to have purpose, or for it to be seen as a disgrace. And that's just personally how I feel. So that's where I am in my life in terms of career. People keep asking me, what are you going to do for a career? Mostly, like, family members who haven't seen me in a long time. And whenever, like, it's just me and them in a room alone, they're like, so what you doing for a career? Because I'm 22 and I didn't go to college, and I'm not working, like, a job, so I'm not making any, like, direct income. Still, I always find ways to use my resources. Like, I'm only 22. I have so much time, and I'm very divinely favored. So most of the time I don't need money. I just am gifted, and I feel like that's a much more ideal way to live life than to always have to figure out how you would get the means to live happily. And I'm grateful every day that money isn't something that I genuinely feel is necessary for my happiness, because I think it can really weigh you down. And I think because I don't value money, and, like, I've been able to enjoy my youth so far in a way that has given me access to passions that are hidden beneath the surface, time that people my age are typically spending, like, in a career or in school or pursuing something. The time that's spent there, I'm using that time to get to know myself and do some deep introspection and genuinely, like, meditate on what my purposes are, so that when I do, when the opportunity for me to begin a career does come, I won't be trying to figure out where I belong, because I've taken that time to get to know myself. And I can't really sit down and explain this to people because it's going to go over their head. Some people just see things the way that they see it, and that's totally fine. It's just that I know myself. I know that if I were to try to conform to the traditional route that, you know, an 18-year-old is expected to go after high school, I would have lost all grasp on reality. And I feel like I only have a grasp on reality now because I didn't listen to anybody that tried to force me to use my talents and gifts in a way that made sense to them, that was logical. So, yes, that's where I am, and I'm happy.